In the forgotten heart of an old village, where fog clings to the trees like cobwebs and the sun dies early each day, stood a crumbling mansion shrouded in ivy and silence. The locals had long learned to ignore its presence. They crossed the road when they neared it, made signs with their fingers, whispered prayers. Children were forbidden to play near it. Everyone knew the house was cursed, not for its appearance, but for its clock. The great, ancient clock mounted over its fireplace stopped every night at exactly midnight. Not a minute late. Not a second before. And with it, time itself ceased to flow. Rhea Banerjee didn't believe in such things. A rational woman, a physicist, and a skeptic, she arrived with a suitcase and a stack of books, determined to catalogue and understand the peculiar property of the house she had mysteriously inherited from a distant, unknown great-uncle. No legal records of him existed, yet his will had been official. Curious, and slightly amused, Rhea saw the whole affair as an intellectual exercise, something to analyze, not fear. She arrived in the village one fog-thick morning. The air was cold, unnaturally so for that time of year. The road to the house was overgrown, the gate rusted but unlocked. The house loomed before her like a beast in hiding. Despite its disrepair, there was something intact about it, frozen in time, almost preserved by some unseen force. The key turned easily in the old brass lock. The door opened with a low groan. Inside, the house smelled like old paper, damp wood, and something less distinct, something that reminded her of hospitals and stone. She stepped inside and froze. Everything was in place. Dusty, yes, but untouched. Plates sat on the dining table, half-finished cups of tea in the kitchen, coats hanging by the door. It was as if the inhabitants had vanished mid-conversation and never returned. Above the fireplace stood the grand clock. An iron and oak relic with intricate carvings of sun, moon, and stars, its pendulum swinging with a steady, relentless rhythm. It read 11:34 p.m. The air was still. A silence like held breath. Rhea explored quietly, her phone light guiding her. The house was vast, hallways that seemed longer than they should, doors that led to rooms filled with antique furniture, sealed books, and strange carvings etched into the walls, circular symbols split down the middle, like an eclipse caught mid-formation. Beneath one, she read the Sanskrit inscription, Samriki Dailies. The threshold of time. She returned to the main room as the clock ticked toward midnight. Her eyes were fixed on the minute hand. 11:59, she opened the stopwatch on her phone to compare the timing. The moment the hand reached 12, everything changed. There was a click, not loud, but final. The pendulum stopped mid-swing. The sound of wind outside vanished. The flames in the fireplace froze, a burst of orange stilled in the air. Her phone went black. She tried to speak but found no voice. She clutched her chest, she could breathe, but the breath didn't warm the air. Time had stopped. She moved slowly, unnerved by the silence. The creak of her boots didn't echo. Her footsteps left no trail in the dust. And then she saw them, shapes, shifting in her periphery. Shadows that hadn't been there before. A man knelt at the mirror in the hallway, sobbing without sound. A child hovered halfway down the staircase, eyes locked in terror. A woman scratched endlessly at a door that would not open. These were not ghosts, they were moments, fragments, echoes of people imprisoned in time. They repeated themselves, endlessly, as if stuck in the worst minute of their lives. Then she heard it. A sound. Not from the clock above, but from somewhere below. A low, mechanical ticking, wet and slow, pulsing beneath the floor. When the clock hand ticked to 12:01, time resumed. The air shifted. The shadows vanished. The fire leapt back to life. Rhea stumbled backward, shaken. Whatever this was, it defied physics. It defied reality. The next day, she explored the house deeper. In the study, she found old journals, entries written in frantic scrawl. "We are the keepers of the threshold. Midnight is a gate. One must always sit, or the rest will rise." The final pages were stained with blood. Behind the grandfather clock in the hallway, she found a door she hadn't noticed before. It led to a stairwell spiraling downward into pitch darkness. As she descended, the ticking grew louder. She reached the basement, expecting dust and cobwebs, but it was clean. Sterile. Cold. At its center stood a massive glass enclosure housing a mechanical monstrosity, an ancient timekeeping engine, its gears turning slowly, each rotation echoing like a heartbeat. Around it sat 7 wooden chairs, each facing the engine. In every chair, a decayed corpse sat strapped upright, their mouths agape in eternal screams, their eyes hollowed out. One chair was empty. Painted behind them in faded red was the phrase, "To stop time is to bind death." But death demands a seat. Rhea staggered back. This wasn't superstition. It was ritual. Some cursed right to keep time frozen, to prevent something worse. The house didn't stop time, it consumed it. She tried to leave. Packed her bags. Ran to the village. But the road turned in circles. Her phone melted into sludge. The trees grew denser. The villagers watched her with strange, empty eyes. One whispered, "Time holds you now." Each night, the hauntings intensified. The trapped souls began to follow her. They whispered her name. They cried. They screamed. The woman who scratched at the door now stood outside her room, bleeding from her fingertips. The child wept beside her bed. Rhea barricaded herself, but they seeped in through the walls. Then came the dream. Or perhaps it wasn't a dream at all. The child approached her and placed a hand on her face. He whispered, "You don't have to sit. You can reset." The next night, just before midnight, Rhea returned to the basement. She poured kerosene over the mechanical heart of the time engine. As the clock above struck 12 and the house froze, she lit a match and dropped it into the gears. Flames erupted silently. The corpses in the chairs writhed. The walls shook. The glass cracked. The entire house screamed, not in sound, but in sensation. Then came darkness. Rhea woke on a dirt road 2 weeks later, clutching a charred piece of a clock's hand. They found her near the edge of the village. The mansion was gone. Erased. No foundation. No ruins. Nothing. She returned to her home in Kolkata, silent about what she'd seen. But every night, at exactly midnight, her clock stopped for 1 minute. The air grows cold. Her breath becomes visible. And in the silence, she hears the faint creaking of a chair behind her. The whisper of a pendulum swinging without time. 1 minute. Every night. And in her dreams, she sees the house again, standing tall, waiting. The 8th chair is still empty. For now.